Jetzt tanze ich ja doch. Nein, das lasse ich natürlich. Wir haben tatsächlich mit dem Retailer Award ein bisschen überzogen und deshalb hat es sich jetzt für mich gar nicht mehr gelohnt, nach hinten zu gehen. Ich bin einfach auf der Spogerhorse.
So here we are at the Spogerhorse stage. We're going on. We're going to talk about the EU Green Deal. We have a great presentation that's not just for our guests here in Hall 7, but also those of you watching from home. Please welcome Maïté Angleys. Here I am. Yeah, so welcome. I'm happy to be here. It's good to see some of you here. I'm going to talk about the EU Green Deal and its effects on equestrian sport industry. So first I'd like to say, you'll see that I'm speaking German, but you'll see that my slides are going to be in English. The reason for this is because the updates and the discussions are all taking place in English. There's lots of legal terms, so I've decided to keep these slides in English. So, talk about myself. My name is Maïté Angleys. I'm the advisor corporate responsibility for BSI. I have a master's in sustainable management at Eberswalde University. In 2016, I became the Director of Sustainability for the Gearfond Group. I ran their strategic sustainability management and social responsibility and financial responsibility. Since 2021, I've been at BSI. This is the German Sporting Goods Industry Association. We are an industry association. We do not have retailers. But it's important for me to say we do have a very close contact with retailers due to our work on sustainability. But we think that these things have to be solved, these problems have to be solved together. So it's important to keep these channels open with retailers. We have 150 members from small and mid-sized companies to multinational corporations. We have a wide range of segments: outdoor equestrian sports equipments, water sport, winter sport. We deal with 50% of textiles, 25% shoes, and 25% hard products. Here are some of our members. You'll see some of them, you'll certainly recognize quite a few of them. So you can see who I'm speaking for. So what am I here to talk about today? If I wanted to, I could talk about all of the details. That will take a long time. So it's important for me to say that you can take the structure at home.
Und wie ist er aufgebaut? Denn dann kann man sich quasi auch weiter informieren über die ganzen Details der einzelnen Gesetzesinitiativen. Ein zweiter wichtiger Punkt.
Another important point is the needed first steps. I tried to put this together. What can we do? What can you do in your company to bring this big avalanche of laws that are coming to be able to meet these requirements? So I'd like to talk about the EU Green Deal in and of itself. Where does it come from? What is it actually? And then I'm going to go into the Circular Economy Action Plan. These are the building blocks of the Green Deal. And then on the I'm going to talk about the Eco-Design for Sustainable Projects Regulation.
For the green transition. Und dann, wie schon gerade
And
gesagt,
then we're going into the needed first steps. So let's go into the Green Deal. The European Green Deal, what is its goal? Its goal, it really wants to be the first climate neutral continent in the world. No more and no less. This was from Ursula von der Leyen in 2019. She presented this to overcome the existential threats of climate change and environmental degradation. So what the text mentions, it's important that it calls this the existential threats and environmental degradation. This is unusual. Such drastic words don't usually appear in legal texts. So that's why there's a lot of energy involved in this regulation and the reaction to it. It's going to have some real effect in our products. So what can we do to... So what we're working for is no net emissions, and by 2050, it's important to mention 2030 because that's the first big milestone. That's when we have to reduce emissions by at least 55%.
ebenfalls bis 2030 liefern wollen.
So 23 is a pretty important date for achieving climate neutrality on time.
Hier ist es der Begriff im EU Green Deal genannt,
So in the EU Green Deal, they use the term decoupling. We need to decouple our growth from resources. In sustainability, this is a very well-known concept. There's lots of controversy about it. But the EU says that we understand that growth, but we want to decouple it from resources. And this is something, another special, this is just transition. This is a term which means that no person and no place should be left behind in the transition. This talks about equity between north, south, higher income, no lower incomes, that we say that we want to bring fairness with this transition. So this is how, what we want to say is that this is what Europe should look like by 2050. The European Green Deal is the vision. So there are lots of initiatives involved. There's a textile strategy, plastic strategy, tradition pathway, chemical strategy. These are all drafts, and one building block is very important, and that's the Circular Economy Action Plan. I'd like to talk about this a little more in depth, because this involves all sectors of the EU. What is the Circular Economy Action Plan? In March of 2020, it was adopted. It's a prerequisite to achieve the EU's 2050 climate neutrality target and to halt biodiversity loss. The new action plan includes initiatives along the entire life cycle of products. From the cradle to the end of life, all products from the EU will meet these targets. So the action plan is actually means how we get there. What are the details? How do we get to this? How do we realize this vision? So the Circular Economy Action Plan aims. This is where it affects the equestrian sector, is to make sustainable products the norm in the EU. This means that only sustainable products can be traded in the EU. It also wants to empower consumers and public buyers
diese sozial-ökologische Transformation voran.
so they want to help consumers to give them more power in their choices. Point number 3, we have a problem with waste. So part of the CEAP aims is to ensure less waste.
Plan in den Bereichen, wo man gesagt hat, okay, hier ist das Potenzial für kreislauffähige Produkte, für eine Kreislaufwirtschaft sehr hoch.
So when the CEAP sees that here is a place where the potentiality for circularity is high, two of the sectors where it is high include plastics and textiles. So there's a lot of words here for this. But if you're interested in knowing what's happening in the Circular Economy Action Plan, here is everything is here.
Level-Plan. Wir reden hier noch über alle Sektoren.
So we're talking about across all sectors.
Hier werden jetzt schon Textilien genannt.
Here is where textiles are named. Textiles are a considerable building block for the work that stands before us.
Also wieder die Idee, Konsumenten.
So we need new rules to power consumers for the green transition, to support this transition. And if you look right in the middle, the blue point, the heart of this plan, is the Eco-Design and Sustainable Products Regulation. This is where the EU says we want sustainable products to be the norm for EU. I've underlined a few terms here, some passages. This is what is recurring. This is what you'll see often. Tackle the destruction of unsold goods. This involves overproduction, that unsold things would not be destroyed. The digital product passport and new labeling rules. And then top right, you see the words durability, repairability, and recycled fiber content. So we're working at a very high level of working with key aspects that can be implemented into the initiatives. What are the initiatives? Here is an overview. These are, I've put in bold the things that are especially important for the equestrian sector. When you're a small company, maybe you won't be directly affected, but you might be indirectly affected by this legislation, because these effects will cascade down, and sooner or later you will have to deal with them. So I could talk about this for 5 hours, but I picked out 3 things that I want to talk about. The Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. There are regulations that are EU law. That means that the EU makes these laws for all of its member states, and they have the same effect in all states. And then there are directives. There they would say, we're looking for a certain result. And then it's up to the member states to whether they want to fulfill that or not, but they're not required. And here's something interesting. Often, companies will prefer,
Allen Mitgliedstaaten in der
if I'm a company if I sell in all member states, I have all the same rules in an ordinance. Now, some of the states follow the directives, so there is a bit of a dance between the different member states. Is this a directive or a regulation? The eco-design regulation is effective in all states. It was published in March 2022.
Okay, wir wollen
So what they are saying is we want to make projects that are fit for climate neutrality and that are fit for to be resource efficient and fit for the circular economy.
also man will dieses Race to the Top initiieren damit.
We want to make a race to the top this way to promote competition.
2024. Und da sehen
It's going into entry into force is planned for 2024.
in Europa auf europäischer Ebene haben in 2024
Right now in 2024,
politischen Willen,
there's lots of public will to
erwarten Sie das eher früher als später.
they want to get this done before the next elections. The eco-design regulation is an umbrella regulation for all EU products.
Chemikalienverordnung.
It's similar to the chemical regulation and goes by the motto, no data, no market. That means that there will be performance and information requirements
Das
that
heißt,
need to be met.
ein nachhaltiges Produkt auf jeden Fall langlebig ist.
This involves product durability, that products are durable, can be reused, they can be upgraded, and they can be repaired.
Und es wird eben auch ganz stark den ökologischen Footprint von einem Produkt gehen, den man nachweislich haben muss, wenn man auf den Markt traden will. Ich komme dazu auch gleich noch.
In other words, that its ecological footprint will be smaller.
Produkte langlebig und reparierbar gestalten.
So you have to make products that are long-lasting and repairable.
Der quasi das Produkt die gesamte Lebenszyklus begleitet, kommunizieren wir
Then you have to
diese Anforderungen und diese Produkteigenschaften.
be able to communicate these requirements to the stakeholders for the entire life of the product. So what is a sustainable product? What does it look like? This goes across all sectors. It's not specific to any industry.
Jetzt sagt die EU uns erst, okay, wir möchten nachhaltige Produkte auf dem Binnenmarkt.
So the EU says, okay, we'd like to have sustainable products on the market. And how? Now we need a way to do it, and that is done through empowering consumers for the Green Tradition Directive.
Diese Richtlinie wurde auch im März letzten Jahres
This directive was published last year.
die eigenen Konsumentinnen darüber informieren muss, dass ein Produkt langlebig ist.
So that consumers have to be provided with information about durability and repairability.
Und dann sagt die EU, bitte informiert eure Kundinnen darüber, dass dieses Produkt langlebig und reparierbar ist. Und dann gibt es unter dieser Directive einen ganz wichtigen Bereich,
And then there's another very important part of this directive that is going to affect every single business. It's going to be monitored that general environmental claims are only going to be allowed when based on the EU eco-label. Words like green or eco-friendly or good for the environment can only be used when they are based on the EU eco-label or through a third-party verification.
Das heißt hier ganz klar an alle Unternehmen auch der Auftrag,
So this gives
Welche
information to all companies. Now, what are your claims? Where do your claims come from when you have sustainability claims?
Und wieder ist es so, ich habe ja gesagt, ich habe Empowering Consumers und Substantiating Green Claims rausgesucht, weil sie zwei Seiten derselben Medaille ist. Empowering Consumers
These two things are two sides of the same coin. On one side, we're empowering the consumers, and on the other side, substantiating green claims, that is for the company.
nicht nur zu vermeiden, sondern eigentlich abzuschaffen.
We want to get rid of, reduce, and then completely prevent greenwashing. We want to make the environmental claims reliable, comparable, and verifiable. So when a company would like to give a claim that involves the environment, there are standards that it has to follow. And what's important is this word PEF, P-E-F, Product Environmental Footprint. This has been developed for over the last 9 years.
Unterschiedliche wissenschaftliche
There are different scientific methods how a footprint is defined. The EU is saying
Man muss so eine Standard
you have to have a standard. You have to have a standard when you make such a claim. And I've heard it also say that it doesn't matter which product you bring onto the EU, you need to have a footprint. You need to be able to claim what your footprint is. And it's not clear if this is going to be a directive or a regulation.
Die Timelines immer mal wieder verschoben.
The timeline has been pushed into later dates, but it will be to be confirmed that the planned entry into force is probably 2026. We're not sure completely. So finally, we will talk about the needed first steps for this. Okay, so I see I need to do something. What can I do? What should I be doing as an entrepreneur? So I've put this into two areas, internal and external.
Das war auch gestern schon Teil der Podiumsdiskussion für
And
diejenigen.
as part of the podium discussion yesterday, the most important aspect is that every company establish its own strategic sustainability management policy. It can be large or small depending on the company, but they have to do it. And we have the second point, management buy-in. This has to be wanted by management. It can be done. It is possible. These initiatives are all positive. You can meet them proactively, but it has to be planned. It has to come from the top down. To make small steps in this direction, it's important that you start now. And for the businesses that are already doing something, that say we have something already, we're already working with sustainability, then the most important thing is that their product development is connected with their sustainability department. How sustainable your product is probably determined by your design team. And there, it's important that you're building up know-how now.
Genau, und dann eben hier dieser Bereich
And
externe
then in the external area,
Organisation, da auch nochmal so ein Aufruf in eigener Sache. Wenn Sie das Gefühl haben,
if you have the feeling that you want to get started and you're not sure how or what to do, then Go to your industrial associations. Write me an email. We have lots of ways to help. We have exchange platforms where people in equestrian sport can talk about and ask questions that pertain specifically to them. If you say, okay, I want to get started, so come to us and we can help you. And we can tell you how to start with the first important steps.
Und zum Abschluss,
And
Abschluss
to close, I will say that there is an avalanche of changes are coming. I'm really convinced that we in the equestrian industry are going to be able to meet them, but we have to start.
noch mal ganz kurz den
So I'd like to open the floor to any questions. If you have any later, you can use my email address, which is here on the screen. Any questions?
Sehr schön, freue ich mich.
All right.
Gut, dann bedanke ich mich ganz herzlich.
Okay, then thank you so much for your attention. And you can write me an email, and I wish you a great day. Thank you.